Welcome to Silent Screams, where darkness, whispers, and terror await you. Are you ready to confront your fears? Story 1: The Curse of the Midnight Staircase. It started like every urban legend, whispered warnings shared in dimly lit rooms. The Midnight Staircase was said to be cursed. A seemingly endless stairwell hidden in the heart of the city. Locals believed it only appeared to those teetering on the edge of despair, offering them an escape that came at a terrible price. If you found it at midnight and climbed without stopping, the staircase would grant your deepest desire. But if you hesitated or turned back, it would claim your soul. Sophia, a skeptical journalist, dismissed the tale as another internet hoax. But when she stumbled across an old forum detailing a string of mysterious disappearances linked to the staircase, her curiosity was piqued. A recent post caught her attention. "I saw the staircase last night. It's real. I'm going back tonight to prove it." The post ended abruptly, its author never posting again. Driven by a mix of skepticism and intrigue, Sophia decided to investigate. Equipped with a flashlight and her recorder, she ventured to the supposed location, a crumbling, abandoned apartment building on the outskirts of town. The night was suffocatingly quiet, the kind of silence that pressed against her ears and sent chills down her spine. As the clock struck midnight, Sophia's flashlight flickered, casting eerie shadows across the graffitied walls. She had almost given up when she saw it, a narrow, spiraling staircase stretching upward into darkness. The air grew colder, and an unnatural pull tugged at her, urging her to ascend. Sophia hesitated at the base, her skepticism faltering. The steps were old, creaking under her weight as she began her climb. The air grew heavier with each step, the silence broken only by her labored breaths and the echo of her footsteps. 10 steps. 20. 50. The staircase seemed endless. Yet Sophia pressed on, the promise of uncovering the truth driving her forward. Her flashlight's beam danced across the walls, revealing strange carvings, symbols that looked ancient and sinister, etched deep into the stone. At the 100th step, she heard it, a faint whisper, like a breeze slipping through a crack. The voice was indistinct, yet it seemed to call her name. She paused, heart hammering. "Hello?" she called out, her voice trembling. The whispering stopped. Suddenly, a sharp, agonized scream echoed from below. Spinning around, she shone her flashlight down the staircase. But there was nothing, just the same steps descending into infinite darkness. She turned back and hurried upward, her resolve shaken. The symbols on the walls became more elaborate, depicting horrific scenes of figures climbing the staircase, their faces twisted in anguish. A sickening realization dawned: the staircase wasn't just a legend. It was alive. At the 500th step, Sophia's legs burned, her breaths coming in ragged gasps. The temperature had dropped to an unbearable chill, her fingers numb as she clutched the railing. The whispers returned, louder now, forming words. "Why do you climb?" Sophia froze. The voice was everywhere and nowhere, reverberating inside her skull. "I'm here to find the truth," she whispered hoarsely. The voice laughed, a cruel, mocking sound. "Truth? The only truth is despair." A wave of nausea hit her, and the walls around her seemed to close in. Shapes moved in the shadows, faces appearing briefly before melting away. Her flashlight flickered, plunging her into momentary darkness. When the light returned, a figure stood a few steps ahead, a man with hollow eyes and a slack jaw. His skin pale and translucent. "Help me," he croaked, reaching out with skeletal fingers. Sophia screamed, stumbling back. The figure disintegrated into ash, swept away by an unseen wind. Panic clawed at her, but she forced herself to keep climbing. Stopping wasn't an option. She remembered the warning: hesitation meant death. Sophia lost track of time. It felt like hours had passed. Or perhaps days. The staircase warped around her, the steps uneven and the air thick with the stench of decay. Her mind played tricks on her. She saw her childhood home, heard her mother's voice, felt the warmth of memories she thought she had forgotten. At the 1,000th step, she reached a landing. A heavy wooden door loomed before her, its surface carved with intricate patterns that pulsed faintly, as though alive. She hesitated, her hand hovering over the doorknob. The voice returned, softer now. "What do you seek, Sophia?" She swallowed hard. "I want to know the truth. I want to be free of fear." The door creaked open, revealing a vast, endless void. In the center stood a mirror, its surface rippling like water. Sophia stepped closer, drawn to her reflection. But what stared back wasn't her, it was a twisted, grotesque version of herself. Eyes black and teeth sharp. "Freedom comes at a cost," the reflection whispered. "Are you willing to pay it?" Before Sophia could answer, the mirror shattered, and the void collapsed around her. She screamed as she fell, the staircase spiraling beneath her like a serpent swallowing its prey. A week later, a maintenance worker at the abandoned building reported strange noises coming from the upper floors. Authorities found Sophia's recorder on the first step of the staircase, its final recording a chilling whisper. She climbed, but she hesitated. Sophia was never seen again. Her disappearance became another chapter in the legend of the Midnight Staircase, a warning to those who dared seek its cursed promise. But some say, on quiet nights, you can hear her whispers, echoing endlessly in the dark. Story 2: The Vanishing Alley. Urban legends have a way of embedding themselves into the collective consciousness. Whispers that stretch across generations. Some are harmless, cautionary tales to keep children safe. Others, however, seem to carry a darker weight. Tales so chilling they twist into something more, something undeniably real. This is the story of the Vanishing Alley, a legend that has haunted the industrial city of Greywick for decades. Nestled between crumbling factories and abandoned warehouses, the alley appears only at night, shrouded in mist, its entrance barely visible under the faint flicker of a broken streetlight. Those who dare to enter are never seen again. Or so the stories go. Jenna Blake wasn't one to believe in ghost stories. A journalism major at Greywick University, she considered urban legends nothing more than fodder for clicks and page views. So when her roommate, Lisa, told her about the Vanishing Alley, Jenna saw it as the perfect opportunity for an investigative piece. "You won't actually go, will you?" Lisa asked, wide-eyed, as she clutched her coffee mug. "People have disappeared, Jenna. Like, for real. People disappear all the time." Jenna replied with a shrug, typing notes into her laptop. "It's a bad neighborhood. Probably muggings or something." Lisa shook her head. "It's not just that. There are stories, people hearing whispers calling their names, seeing shadows moving in the mist. And then, poof, they're gone. Despite Lisa's warnings, Jenna couldn't resist. The allure of uncovering the truth behind the vanishing alley was too tempting. That Friday night, armed with a flashlight and her phone, she set out to find the infamous passageway. The streets of Greywick were eerily quiet as Jenna wandered through the industrial district. The distant hum of a train and the occasional bark of a stray dog were the only sounds accompanying her. It wasn't long before she found it, a narrow gap between two dilapidated buildings, barely wide enough for a person to slip through. A broken streetlight above it buzzed and flickered, casting fleeting glimpses of the fog that pooled within. The air grew colder as she approached, her breath forming small clouds. Jenna hesitated, her heart pounding against her ribs. For the first time, she felt a sliver of unease. But the pull of curiosity was stronger. She stepped inside. The alley was longer than she expected, the fog swallowing her after just a few steps. The world outside disappeared, replaced by an oppressive silence. Jenna tightened her grip on her flashlight, its beam cutting through the mist. But only just. And then she heard it, a faint whisper. Indistinct but unmistakable. "Hello?" Jenna called, her voice trembling. She spun around, her flashlight sweeping the alley. Nothing. The whispers grew louder, circling her like an invisible crowd. Her name echoed softly through the fog. Jenna. Jenna. Panic began to creep in. She fumbled for her phone, but the screen remained black no matter how many times she pressed the button. A low hum vibrated through the air, accompanied by a sensation of being watched. The shadows began to move. At first, they were subtle, just flickers at the edge of her vision. But soon, they grew bolder, darting across the walls and ground. One of them lingered, a vaguely human silhouette standing impossibly tall. "Who's there?" she demanded, her voice cracking. The shadow didn't respond. Instead, it began to stretch toward her, its form bending and twisting unnaturally. Jenna stumbled back, her flashlight shaking in her hand. The whispers rose to a deafening cacophony. And then, silence. When she looked up, the shadow was gone. But so was the alley. Jenna found herself in a dimly lit room, the air heavy with the stench of mildew and decay. The walls were lined with faded, torn posters of missing persons, their faces staring blankly at her. A single door stood at the far end, slightly ajar, revealing nothing but darkness beyond. Her pulse raced as she approached the door. The whispers returned, louder now, forming words that chilled her to the bone. "We see you. We've been waiting." She pushed the door open, revealing a staircase spiraling downward into the abyss, against every instinct screaming at her to run. She descended. Each step echoed into the void, the oppressive darkness seeming to close in around her. The whispers became screams, overlapping voices pleading, crying, and laughing maniacally. The temperature dropped further, frost forming on the walls. At the bottom of the stairs, Jenna found herself in a cavernous chamber lit by a pale, unnatural glow. The shadows were there, writhing and shifting like a living sea. In the center stood a figure, cloaked and faceless, its arms outstretched as if in welcome. "You sought the truth," it said, its voice a guttural mix of 1,000 voices. "And now, you will join us." Lisa waited for Jenna to come home. But the hours turned to days. The police were called. Searches were conducted. But no trace of Jenna was ever found. Months later, a new flyer joined the dozens of others plastered across Greywick, Jenna's face. Smiling, with the word missing in bold letters beneath it. Late one night, Lisa found herself walking past the industrial district. Her curiosity getting the better of her. She paused at the mouth of a narrow alley, shrouded in fog. A broken streetlight flickering above. From within the mist, she heard it, Jenna's voice. Faint and pleading. "Lisa, help me." The Vanishing Alley remains an urban legend. A whispered tale told to warn the curious and the brave. But the missing flyers across Greywick tell a different story, a story of something darker. Something real. And if you ever find yourself wandering through the industrial district at night, beware the alley that shouldn't exist. For once you enter, you may never return. Story 3, The Vanishing Tracks. In the heart of the sprawling city of Ashbourne lies an abandoned train yard. Decaying tracks stretch endlessly, their rusted iron fingers vanishing into the thick fog that blankets the area year-round. Locals avoid the yard, sharing whispered warnings of the vanishing tracks legend. They say anyone who ventures there after midnight is lured into another world, never to return. Despite the warnings, urban explorer Lily Foster, a skeptic at heart, couldn't resist the allure. Armed with her camera, flashlight, and a recorder, she set out to uncover the truth behind the legend. For Lily, this wasn't just another exploration, it was her way of debunking myths for her YouTube channel. Little did she know, some legends are better left untouched. Lily entered the yard at 11:50 p.m. Her boots crunching against the gravel. The air was unnaturally cold for summer, and the silence was deafening. Her flashlight illuminated rusted train cars, graffiti-covered walls, and crumbling sheds. The track seemed to shimmer faintly under the moonlight, as though alive. As midnight struck, her equipment began to malfunction. Her camera flickered, the flashlight dimmed, and her phone's screen cracked with static. Then, she heard it, a faint whistle in the distance. It wasn't the cheerful whistle of a modern train but a mournful wail, resonating with an eerie metallic echo. "Hello?" Lily called out, her voice shaky. Only the whistle replied, growing louder and closer. Panic gnawed at her resolve, but curiosity held her in place. She decided to follow the sound, her flashlight barely piercing the dense fog. The track seemed to shift as she walked. One moment, they curved to the left, the next, they stretched straight into an abyss of darkness. Her steps felt heavier, as if unseen forces clung to her ankles. The whistle blared again, deafening this time. It was so close that Lily instinctively ducked, expecting a train to rush past. Instead, the fog parted, revealing an old-fashioned steam engine halted on the tracks. Its black metal gleamed as if freshly polished. But there was no crew, no passengers, just emptiness. The engine exuded a faint glow, and the air smelled of sulfur and burnt wood. Against her better judgment, Lily climbed aboard. The interior was immaculate, a stark contrast to the dilapidated yard. Velvet seats lined the walls, and brass fixtures gleamed in the dim light. On the floor lay a single object, a pocket watch, its hands spinning backward. As Lily bent to pick it up, she felt a cold breath on her neck. "Leave," a voice hissed. She spun around, but the train was empty. The door behind her slammed shut, and the engine roared to life. The train hurtled through an otherworldly landscape. Outside the windows, The world dissolved into streaks of black and gray, punctuated by flashes of crimson lightning. Lily tried the doors, but they wouldn't budge. Her recorder buzzed with static, interrupted by faint whispers, "You shouldn't be here. Turn back. They're watching." She wasn't alone for long. Shadows began to appear in the seats, faint at first, then solidifying into ghostly figures. Their eyes were hollow, their expressions frozen in anguish. One by one, they turned to face her. "Who are you?" Lily demanded, her voice trembling. They didn't answer. Instead, they pointed in unison to a darkened corridor at the end of the car. The whistle sounded again, more mournful than before, and the train shuddered violently. Against her will, Lily felt her feet carrying her toward the corridor. The corridor led to the engine room, where an imposing figure stood, the conductor. His face was obscured by a dark, brimmed hat, and his uniform shimmered with an unnatural glow. He turned slowly, revealing hollow sockets where his eyes should have been. "You don't belong here," he growled, his voice resonating like grinding metal. "But now, you can never leave." Lily backed away, but the train jolted, throwing her to the floor. The conductor stepped closer, extending a skeletal hand. In his grasp was the spinning pocket watch. "You've tampered with time. The tracks have chosen you." "What do you mean?" Lily shouted. "Let me go." The conductor didn't answer. Instead, he opened a hatch, revealing a swirling void of crimson and black. Screams echoed from the depths. Before Lily could resist, the conductor hurled her into the abyss. Lily awoke in the train yard, her equipment scattered around her. Dazed, she checked her watch. It was 11:50 p.m. She had come full circle. Convinced it was all a dream, she started to leave. But the tracks shimmered once more. The mournful whistle echoed through the night. Suddenly, she noticed her reflection in a shard of broken glass. Her face was pale, her eyes hollow. The conductor's words rang in her mind, "The tracks have chosen you." As she turned to leave, a train emerged from the fog, its engine glowing faintly. Lily felt an irresistible pull toward it. The pocket watch was in her hand now, its hands spinning backward. She boarded the train, unable to stop herself. The train vanished into the fog, leaving no trace behind. Weeks later, local newspapers reported another disappearance at the train yard. Whispers of the vanishing tracks grew louder, but no one dared to investigate. The abandoned yard remains, a silent testament to the souls it has claimed. The train still roams the night, its whistle a siren call for the curious. They say if you listen closely, you can hear Lily's voice among the whispers, warning others to stay away. But the legend persists, and the tracks always hunger for more.